Hello everyone, it's Jacqueline here. So today's video is a nice little collab with the Cut and Paste magazine. I already have a video where I won this on Instagram, so I did a whole flip through of it. So if you want to check that video out, you can if you want to see every single page that was in the greenhouse version. And after talking to the creator of this magazine, Megan, she sent me a second one, so this is my second one, so that I could make a video making a collage. So I'm pretty excited to dive into here and make a collage. So I want to first go over all the supplies that I'm going to be using today. So the supplies that you'll need is a magazine. You can use the Cut and Paste magazine, any of the past issues. There's a Meadow one, a Vibrant one. The next one coming out, I think is this summer, and that will be the travel one. So get a magazine of some sort, type of papers that you have. You will also need a glue stick. This is just what I had on hand, but I think any type of glue stick should work. This one happens to be like an extra strength one, so it'll stick a little bit better. You can also look up to see what maybe other collage artists use, but this is what I'm going to use today. I like to have a clip sometimes. That is mostly to hold open my sketchbook, because I will show you some sketches I have of ideas. So not necessarily needed for this, but I use it for over here. And then you'll need scissors. I like using two different scissors. I have this bigger one to cut bigger, like if I want to cut out this huge piece here. And then when I'm getting into the nitty-gritty tiny pieces, I like to use a tiny pair of scissors. I thrifted these. I have a lot of tiny scissors. I even have like this one, but this is my fancier one that I don't use for paper products. I use it for fancier, more delicate things, but I like having an array of tiny little scissors. You can thrift these for fairly cheap. So a pair of tiny scissors is always good. I like to have a ruler of some sort, so that I can measure different things, or I also like to use it if I want a straight edge to hold down and rip the paper, if I need a nice cleaner edge. So I like having a ruler. Then, not as necessary, but because I like being a pretty organized artist, I have this little tray, and this is to hold all the trash pieces. Your desk can get very messy as you're cutting and ripping and snipping all the little pieces. So I like to have something to kind of hold all the big trash pieces that I know I'm not going to use, but at least it's like in a little cute tray that I got at Goodwill for like $2 or $3. And then I also like to use one of my paint palettes just because it already has these little divots here. So as I cut out little tiny circles or little bits and pieces that I want, that I don't necessarily am gluing down quite yet, I can kind of organize them. And then of course you can have extra things. So you can have colored pencils, markers. You can even have some like neo colors, so that when you put all your pieces together, you can then draw on top of it if you need just a little bit extra of a color or something. I've seen collage artists do this as well, so that's another thing that you can have. And of course, you can always have paint of some sort. So you could bust out your gouache paints, you could do watercolor paints if you want, acrylic paints, whatever you might want. So you can paint on things as well. I'm going to start with just the collage part, and then we'll see how it evolves as I create my piece. So now the prep stage. So I want to take out the binding staples that she has in here. So I flipped open to the center. I'm going to use this like letter opener so I don't hurt my fingers. And I'm going to take the staples out. So now I will able to more freely pull all of these pieces apart. I can organize it into dark colors, light colors. So this is going to be a lot easier for me to grab all the pieces. So another thing you could do is you could just start cutting down all these center pieces. So I think I might do that If you have like a paper cutter of some sort, you could also do that. I just have scissors, so I'm probably going to do that. But before I start cutting and prepping all of that, I will do that off camera so you don't have to watch me cut all that. I want to talk about the ideas that I have. I do have my little sketchbook here. I do have a video about the sketchbook when I got it and tips on starting a sketchbook. So I've already started in on it, but I want to show you the sketches I made for my collage idea. A few ideas I had, I just did these 4 little thumbnails of a mountain scene, a countryside scene, a desert, and a coast scene. Knowing that this particular magazine I have is more greenhouse, so it's going to be a lot more greens, I think I'm not going to do the desert or the coast. Not that I couldn't figure it out, I just think it'll be a little bit easier for me to do like a mountain or countryside scene. So I was thinking of doing this mountain scene so I could get a couple different like blues or purples in the background, and I can add in these little houses and maybe like a little fence and some flowers in the front. So this is the one that I think I want to go with. So I created a bigger kind of version where I know I'm going to have wildflowers in the foreground, a fence to show some more perspective, the hills and the mountains showing more perspective. I want to do a cute little cottage here, and then trees surrounding it so it just feels like it's nestled in all these trees. And then maybe some smaller houses and trees in the background. I have birds with a question mark, so maybe I'll do some birds, we shall see. But this is kind of the rough sketch that I have made, and I've never created little cottages. So I started coming up with a few different ideas, and I looked at other collage artists to kind of get an idea of like what are the simple shapes they use. I already went ahead, since I already have 2 of these magazines, I started cutting into the other one so I could start making my little bits. So let me show you that. So I started creating these little cottages where I made a bigger one so it'll be more of my focal point for the foreground, and these little tiny ones where I use a little bit of a colored pencil to kind of draw on there too, because they were so small. Trying to cut that tiny of a piece would be a little bit more difficult. So I did start creating some of these little houses, but I do have these sketches to look back on to kind of get a feel of maybe what type, size, and shapes of houses and cottages that I want. So that's always a good idea, is to come up with some quick ideas, add a little bit more details to maybe your final one, and then if you need to draw out something like a cottage or a house, or if you had like a city scene so you need more big blocks of buildings or something, or even the wildflowers, by all means kind of sketch that out as well. So I'm going to keep this side open. I'm going to clip this open. That's why I have a clip. And then I will hold this side down with that. And so I'm going to put this off to the side so that I still have a little reference to it. If you find reference photos like on Pinterest or online, you can always have that up on like a computer or your phone or something off to the side. But I just have this nice little sketch. So I've cut the magazine so I could get all of the pieces cut out and more easily accessible for me than being in the folded part of a magazine. So I could cut out all the pieces that I want. The only bummer about this, I would say, is that if you wanted to cut something on this side, it would cut into this side. So I'm glad that I do have 2 of these magazines, so that I can, if I wanted like these pieces, but I really wanted this back side as well, I now have 2 pieces. Or if there's a certain piece that I want to cut out and frame, I can do that as well. So not that you have to have 2 of the magazines, but it is helpful if you're creating collages. And I also forgot to mention, you need a piece of paper to glue all of your pieces down. I completely forgot to say this, so sorry about that, but you do want the paper to paste your collage onto. So I had this piece of arches, just depends on how you want to say it, thicker watercolor paper. So that is what I'm going to use. You can use any other type of paper you want. You could even use some of this paper, especially like the cover. It's a much thicker material. These ones are a little bit thinner than the cover, so you can do that as well. So have a piece of paper that you want to create your collage on. So next you're going to want to kind of look through all the magazine and cut out all the colors that you want. You can cut out, what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut out the big sections to kind of figure out the main parts. So I know I'm going to have hills, I need greenery in the front so it's more grass-like, I need my mountain shaped colors that I want. I've already created my little cottage, but I also need like all the greens for the trees that will go around it. So you're going to want to start with the bigger pieces to kind of figure out your configuration. This is going to take a while, I think. So I'll just kind of speed through the process and maybe jump ahead sometimes so you don't have to watch me go through every little step, because it might take me like an hour or so. Like, who knows how long this is going to take. Also, another tip I heard online is if you have like a big metal sheet and some of those tiny little magnets, you could always use that to stick all your pieces on, because they do like to move around. I close my windows, there's no like gust of wind or anything. I have the fan off so that nothing will blow away. So you can use something like magnets and a metal sheet, like a cookie sheet or something like that, to hold your pieces down. I don't have that. Totally okay. So we're just gonna go with this. So I will show you what I have here in a little bit. Okay, I have jumped ahead to where I cut out a whole bunch of pieces. It took me like an hour or so. I have the pieces over here, and I wanted to show you how I start laying them on my final piece. So I actually used a lot of Katie Moody's. She was the creator spotlight of this issue. I really liked all of her pastels and different pieces. Like, I used some of this actually for some of the little houses. But I really enjoyed a lot of her pieces. And the cool thing is because she was the spotlight creator person, this right here was twice. Like, this piece was in here twice. There was like a smaller version. So I used it to cut out all these little circles that I have here that I'm going to use, I think, for some flowers. I think I'm going to use this for some of the flowers that will go in the foreground. So I'm pretty excited about that. And then I use a lot of the pictures of greenery. Like, this was a lily pad. Here I use some of the dark parts of this background. Just lots and lots of pieces. So let me just go ahead and start grabbing some of the pieces and filling it in. I knew I wanted something dark in the foreground so that when I put the flowers on it, it would pop a little bit more. So that is why I did that. And just like with my paintings, I'm trying to keep it darker-ish towards the front, and then off in the background, which I haven't even done the mountains yet, it'll be lighter colors so that it gives a little bit more perspective. But it was a lot of tearing of pieces, figuring it out, and playing around with the shapes to try to get more hill-type feelings, hill-type shapes that I created in even like my little sketch. Sometimes it's really hard. Just a lot of playing around, and then to cover all that, that's where that piece kind of comes in. Then I have more hills for back here. You can see that this was like a photo of some grass pieces, I think, but I turned it this way for some more hills. And this was like a vase that was holding flowers, but I really liked the reflectiveness of it. And then the vase had all of these little curves, so I thought that that would help with kind of creating, you know, the hill feel. And like this piece had these lines in it. Now, of course, you could take a colored pencil or something to add in those lines and shapes if you want to, but sometimes you find pieces that do that for you. But I'll keep this one here so I can kind of start figuring out where the many trees that I have cut out. I cut off a lot of these shapes. kind of coming out quite nicely. I even have more trees to play with. So I know I want, I think, a mountain. A mountain, and then I know maybe more brush. This could also be a really nice like mountain. Or do I just keep it more like countryside? That was like one of my options I had on here too. Or it was a little bit more country with just more hills. I could always merge the two ideas together. Let's see if I can find maybe something I like for the mountains. So a tip I have for you is if you want this white showing or you don't want it, I want this to be one of the shapes of the mountains in the background. So I'm pulling it towards me so there'll be minimal white happening. Tuck behind there. I think that kind of looks nice. So I took a moment, stepped back, and I don't know if I care for the mountains as much. So I'm going to snip them out ever so gently. Yeah, I kind of like maybe a more minimal sky approach. I'm kind of liking that configuration a little bit more. And I'm thinking maybe with flowers, I'll put like, you know, something, another color, like contrasting color in the middle of it, maybe draw little petals. What I'm going to do next is get that hills and background and then start putting all these little pieces in. Give me a moment and I'm going to start gluing all of these things out. So I kind of started running off on this edge. So something I was thinking I might rip it to make it a little bit smaller. I don't know quite yet. I should have scooted it all over that way. And it's pretty glued on now. That's okay. So I'm going to continue putting some of these little bits in here. So now you can see that I have added little birds up here. I've worked on the flowers. I'm keeping my flowers very easy, like just literally ovals with other color ovals inside. You could be a little bit different if you wanted to. I was thinking once I have them all on here, I might go in with a colored pencil to put some like petals or dots, or just give it some more texture. And then I cut up a whole bunch of little blades of grass and stems. So now I'm going to, now that my hands are clean to be able to put all that on there, I am now going to glue and stick them all down. So that's what I'm going to do next. Okay, so this is how far I've gotten in many hours. This takes a lot longer than I thought, but that's totally okay. Instead of just doing flowers over here and a fence that went back, I decided to do cut grass and flowers to go on both sides to kind of frame it a little bit more. And then since this right side went up with the hills and had like these little cottages and houses back here, I thought to balance the left upper corner, I added these tiny little birds just flying in the sky to kind of give it all a nice movement. If I decide to add a fence going through here, I can do that later. I could also draw it if I wanted to. I was going to grab some of my colored pencils to kind of add a little bit more details to the flowers and whatnot, so I'm going to go ahead and do that part now, and then I'll come back with the final piece. Perfect. So I added a little bit more detail into the flowers, nothing fancy. I added like just a little bit of texture. I don't know if you can really see that. Just a little bit. I tried to add a little bit of smoke coming out of that with a lighter colored pencil, but didn't work out as well, but that's okay. So a few tips I have for you are using bigger items in the foreground, like flowers and your cottage that's more towards the foreground, and to create more depth I put littler ones as they went back on the hills. Also, what you could do is lighter colors in the background to help it push back. I kept my sky just the color of the paper since I ended up not putting the mountains in it, so that's my lighter color. When I was playing around with it, I put my bigger items down first and then found pieces that would fit into each of the little curves. This piece originally was like in between these two, but then I had this paper white space there, so I put it up here instead. Totally okay. Sometimes you have to rearrange things a few times. If you're wanting to make like the flowers and the cottages and stuff, I would make those first so that you can kind of get your depth of field and where like your focal points are going to be. I wish I had put this just a little bit more in this area than too far to the left, but I guess I could peel it up and like move it over, but it's totally okay because since I decided not to do the fence right here right now, I think scooting this whole section over would have helped with the composition, but again, totally okay. And then now that I have it all glued down, I might go around to all these edges and get my glue stick underneath there to really get all those edges down. I I really got like these itty bitty pieces really on there. I believe you could even do like some sort of coat on top of this, like Mod Podge or something. I don't have any of that, so I'm just going to stick with this. But I think that it turned out very well for my first time collaging. I think it turned out really well. So let me know down below if you have any tips for me. I've seen collage artists even make their own paper where they paint like on pieces of paper to cut what they want. I had a lot of fun using this cut and paste magazine. Here I really enjoyed using the cut and paste magazine. Go ahead and give this video a like if you really liked it. Let me know again if you've collaged before, how you would go about doing this, because I even thought there's pieces within here, like that's a flower already. I could have cut that and put that in here. I decided to create my own shapes, but you can easily use what's in the cut and paste magazine to make your creations as well. And I thoroughly enjoyed it. It took a lot longer than I thought. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I'm very excited to have gotten my hands like a little messier. I gotta cut things, I gotta paste things. I haven't played with glue in a while, so that was really fun to kind of play around with and try something different of making a landscape instead of painting using paper. So I will see you all in the next one. Cheers.